Welcome to the American Lit Nation, where students of American literature can get tutoring without leaving the comfort of wherever they are. We are here to help you, the struggling student, figure out and comprehend our American literature. This course starts with early American literature, an exploration and study of Puritan literature, and concludes with 20th century literature many lessons down the road. We will upload as many videos as we can over the next 9 months. Yes, you heard me correctly, the next 9 months. This is going to be a full exploration of American literature and maybe even some tutoring on writing as well. So please subscribe so you can be notified anytime a new video is posted. It would also be great if you would press the like button. These two actions will go a long way in helping this channel to stay alive and in spreading the word to help others just like us that struggle sometimes with reading comprehension and those crazy questions we have to deal with on standardized assessments. We really love teaching American Lit and hope we can help you get a better grasp of the analysis and skills necessary to dissect each piece of literature we study. You will greatly benefit from your engagement in this course. Now let's get to it, and welcome to the American Lit Nation. Today's episode is part 1 of The Captivity and Restoration of Mrs. Mary Rowlandson, a how-to tutorial on analyzing Puritan literature. Welcome to the read-along for a narrative of the captivity and restoration of Mrs. Mary Rowlandson. This was published in 1682. There are a few things along the way in the boxes that I'm going to take time to read to you. I want you to make sure you pay attention to these. These are very important as you prepare and study for the test that we'll be having on Tuesday. It would be our first test of the year. It'll be over the Puritan unit, and especially with the literature, of course. So please make sure you pay due diligence to this assignment. You complete it to your very best and be ready for that test on Tuesday. Notice at the top left you'll see a box that says notice the figurative language. Highlight, circle words, phrases, terms Rowlandson uses to refer to Native Americans. Some of these are already highlighted for you. If you see others, go ahead and highlight them. Okay, Rowlandson, if you look over here to the right, she published her narrative, the first captivity narrative, with a woman as the central figure, 6 years after the initial release, after her release. Excuse me. This was published 6 years after her release. And we'll go ahead and start reading it. A little background. Mary Rowlandson lived from 1637 to 1711. She was abducted and held captive for 3 months by the Wampanoag Indians in 1676 during what was known as the Metacomet's or King Philip's War, named for the Wampanoag leader during an attack on the small town of Lancaster, Massachusetts. Indians seized Rowlandson, her 3 children, and 19 of their neighbors. Rowlandson was sold by her captors to Quanapin, who became her master until her husband paid a ransom for her release. On the 20th of February, 1676, came the Indians with great numbers upon Lancaster. Their first coming was about sunrising. Hearing the noise of some guns, we looked out. Several houses were burning, and the smoke ascending into heaven. There were 5 persons taken in one house. The father and the mother and a suckling child they knocked on the head. The other 2 they took and carried away alive. There were 2 others who, being out of their garrison upon some occasion, were set upon. One was knocked on the head, the other escaped. Another there was who was running along was shot and wounded and fell down. He begged of them his life, promising them money, as they told me, but they would not hearken to him, but knocked him on the head, and stripped him naked, and split open his bowels. Another, seeing many of the Indians about his barn, ventured and went out, but was quickly shot down. There were 3 others belonging to the same garrison who were killed. The Indians, getting upon the roof of the barn, had advantage to shoot down upon them over their fortification. Thus these murderous wretches went on, burning and destroying before them. Now look over here in the box on the right. Notice the use of inversion, which is a feature of archaic writing. And in modern English, we would say that the Indians came. What does Rowlandson mean by taken in the sentence. There's another question here. What strong diction does Rowlandson use to refer to the Native Americans in this paragraph? Native Americans are also known as the Indians. Next paragraph. At the length they came and beset our own house, and quickly it was the dolefulest day that ever mine eyes saw. Inverted syntax. The house stood upon the edge of the hill. Some of the Indians got behind the hill, others into the barn, and others behind anything that could shelter them. From all which places they shot against the house, so that the bullets seemed to fly like hail, and quickly they wounded one man among us, then another, and then a third. About 2 hours, according to my observation, in that amazing time they had been about the house before, they prevailed to fire it, which they did with flax and hemp, which they brought out of the barn, and there being of no defense about the house, only 2 flankers and 2 opposite corners, and one of them not finished. They fired it once, and one ventured out and quenched it, but they quickly fired it again, and that took. Now is the dreadful hour come that I have often heard in time of war, as it was the case of others. But now mine eyes see it. Some of the house were fighting for their lives, others wallowing in the blood, their house on fire over our heads, and the bloody heathen ready to knock us on the head if we stirred out. Now might we hear mothers and children crying out for themselves and one another, Lord, what shall we do? Okay, the questions that go along with this paragraph. First one is, what does the prevailed to fire it mean in this context? And that is highlighted right here in the gray. Second question is, who are bloody heathen? And again, that's highlighted right here in the next to last line. Moving on to the next paragraph. Then I took my children and one of my sisters, hers, to go forth and leave the house. But as soon as we came to the door and appeared, the Indians shot so thick that the bullets rattled against the house as if one had taken a handful of stones and thrown them, so that we were in fain to give back. We had 6 stout dogs belonging to our garrison, but none of them would stir, though another time, if any Indian had come to the door, they were ready to fly upon him and tear him down. The Lord hereby would make us more to acknowledge his hand and to see that our help is always in him. We've got a lot going on in this paragraph. The first question says to paraphrase the clause to clarify Rowlandson's meaning. And this is the clause that is highlighted here. We'll highlight it in yellow for you. This is the clause that we are referring to. The second question is the meaning of feign as used here. Feign is right here in this sentence. Okay. And then the last question, what does Rowlandson mean in this sentence? Use the sentence before it to help you answer the question. What is she saying that God did to make her recognize that her help comes from God? So make sure that you use everything that I'm highlighting here to help you answer this question. Next page. But out we must go, the fire increasing and coming along behind us, roaring, and the Indians gaping before us with their guns, spears, and hatchets to devour us. No sooner were we out of the house, but my brother-in-law, being before wounded in defending the house, in or near the throat, fell down dead. Whereat the Indians scornfully shouted and hallooed, were presently upon him, stripping off his clothes, the bullets flying thick. One went through my side, and the same, as it would seem, through the bowels and hand of my dear child in my arms. One of my elder sister's children, named William, had then his leg broken, which the Indians perceiving, they knocked him on the head. Thus we were butchered by those merciless heathen, standing amazed with the blood running down to our heels. Now this is a pretty powerful paragraph of what's going on. What we're asking you to do here is to rewrite this clause to clarify Rowlandson's meaning. But my brother-in-law in the beginning before wounded. What is highlighted in yellow is what we're asking you to work on. Next paragraph. There were 12 killed, some shot, some stabbed with their spears, some knocked down with their hatchets. When we were in prosperity, oh, that little that we think of such dreadful sights, and to see our dear friends and relations lie bleeding on their heart blood upon the ground. There was one who was chopped in the head with a hatchet and stripped naked, and yet was crawling up and down. It is solemn sight to see so many Christians lying in the blood, some here, some there, like a company of sheep torn by wolves, all of them stripped naked by a company of hellhounds, roaring, singing, ranting, and insulting, as if they would have torn out our very hearts, or torn our very hearts out. Yet the Lord, by his almighty power, preserved a number of us from death, for there were 24 of us taken alive and carried captive. Now, yes, this is kind of a difficult paragraph to read. You can see where the inversion caught me as I was reading it to you. The question over here refers to didactic. What does Rowlandson want her readers to learn? And then the other question, why does Rowlandson believe that she was not killed during the attack? So make sure you understand the definition of didactic. If you need to look it up, look it up. Here is a clue as to what we are looking for in this particular question. Make sure you're writing your answers on a separate sheet of paper. Obviously, there is not enough room to answer all your questions in such small spaces. Next paragraph. I had often before this said that, if the Indians should come, I should choose rather to be killed by them than taken alive. But when it came to the trial, my mind changed. Their glittering weapons so daunted by the spirit that I chose rather to go along with those, as I may say, ravenous beast, than that the moment to end my days, and that I may be better declare to what happened to me during that grievous captivity. I shall particularly speak of the several removes we had up and down the wilderness. Okay. Rowlandson is using the term remove to refer to the occasions when she and her captors moved from one geographic location to another. This concludes part 1 of this reading selection, The Captivity and Restoration of Mrs. Mary Rowlandson. Please remember to complete these answers on a separate sheet of paper. It'll make it much easier to read by you and by me during grading and, of course, during studying time.
Be sure to subscribe and click on the bell below so you will automatically get a notification when Part 2 is released. Thanks for watching today, and come back and join us at the American Lit Nation.